Welcome to the local campaign here on Rogers TV. I am your host, Derick Fage. We have a date for the by-election for Kanata-Carleton. That is July the 27th. The constituents from Kanata-Carleton go to the polls on the 27th. There are advance polls, by the way, July 19th, 20th, and 21st, and they are open from 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. Of course, this by-election is coming because Marilee Fullerton back in March decided to vacate her seat, and so it is time for the by-election. Now, we're doing a very simple forum with our candidates here today. It's going to be very straightforward, where they're going to have 60 seconds for an opening statement. We have 3 questions based on healthcare, transportation, and education. They will have 2 minutes to answer each of those, and each of them will have the exact same question. We did invite all members to join us here, all party members to join us here. Unfortunately, the invitation to the PC party, Sean Webster, he declined our invitation, and Jennifer Boudreau from the New Blue Party also declined our invitation. However, we do have 4 candidates, and I begin with the candidate for the Liberal Party. Karen McCrimmon joins me. Welcome, Karen. Great to have you here. And Karen, yeah, as I said, we'll start off with 60 seconds for you to speak to, your riding and to tell them a little bit about yourself.
All right, thanks very much, Derick. And I want to start by thanking you and Rogers TV for doing this, for helping, enhance our democracy by participation from all of our constituents. I think it's really important, and I thank you very much for that.
It's our pleasure.
I was the Member of Parliament for Kanata-Carleton for almost 6 years. It was a privilege of my life. And when I stepped aside, I had some minor health issues, but I had family care issues. I couldn't look after me and look after my in-laws and look after the people of Kanata-Carleton at the same time, so I had to step aside. And I believe that the people of Kanata-Carleton deserve someone who's going to step up and speak up for them. And so when I watch what's happening on the provincial level, when I see the dismantling of public health care and the dismantling of public education and the selling off of really critical green spaces, I thought, okay, I can't afford to just to sit here and not do something. And the people of Kanata-Carleton, when I'm knocking on their doors, they say, "We're so glad you're back." And that just gives my heart a real, true lift.
Well, you touched on caring for others. So, my first question is around healthcare. And how would you help address the concerns? The province is shifting towards more privatization within the healthcare system.
All right, there's two whenever you look at a large system like healthcare, a large organizational system, there's the local issues, first of all. There's no large or medium scale healthcare facility west of Queensway Carleton Hospital. They do a wonderful job for us, but Kanata and Stittsville together are growing at such a rate. We should have our own health hub or our own urgent care clinic. Those are things that are relatively, easy, should be easy to put in place. So that's an issue local that we should actually work on regardless of what happens in this election. Then there's the larger systemic issues, and those need another level of care and attention. The number one issue at the door is the lack of family doctors. And the other concern, and more so perhaps in the rural part of the riding, is the closing of small ERs, small emergency rooms, and the kind of substandard care that we've given to our seniors. So all of those things, it's a huge system that actually needs to be updated, and it needs to be reinforced. And I bring certain advantages to this, and I have a large network of colleagues, of people I've worked with in the past, of people I've spoken with, people I've advocated with at the federal level, provincial level, municipal level, that I can actually draw on when we want to do that kind of work at the system level.
I'll move on to transportation. Constituents are frustrated with public transit in your particular riding. What needs to be done to bring reliable public transit to Kanata-Carleton?
You're absolutely right, Derick. And one of the most important things I did when I was the Member of Parliament for Kanata-Carleton was to get the funding, to get the money to do the environmental assessment to both bring the LRT and the bus rapid transit from Moody to Kanata. I think that's absolutely key, and we need more of it. So when I think of that, I argued what I argued when I wanted the money. I said, this is going to be the most efficient use of transit money, because from that sector between Kanata and Moody, we will be moving people both ways all the time. So not only will we be moving people downtown to take the jobs downtown, we'll be moving people from the other parts of the city into Kanata to work. And we need young people who are not buying cars. We need to get their transit to bring their talent out to Kanata to continue to build our high-tech park.
Let's finish with education. Do you think that there are areas where funding for education should increase or even cut?
Increase. It has been proven time and time again. For every dollar you invest in education, you will reap $1.20 of enhanced economic activity. It's proven. The stats are out there. So this is a good investment of our money. And again, there's certain local issues. We need a new high school in Kanata-Carleton. We also, when you're looking at the developments that are happening, we have to make sure that we're actually going to get the elementary schools located to the new developments so that we don't have these large developments with no schools. All of that has to be coordinated. But then at the larger scale, you also have to have those investments so that we're doing education that actually creates opportunities for people. And our education workers, much like our healthcare workers, I think they've been disrespected and mistreated. And they are the foundation of a tremendous system of public health care and public education that has done us well for years.
Karen, appreciate the time today. Wish you the best of luck.
Thank you, Derick.
Thank you very much. We'll be back to introduce you to the next candidate right after this. I'll now introduce you to our next candidate. She represents the NDP. I am joined by Melissa Conrad. Thanks for doing this, Melissa. Appreciate your time today. Let's start off with an opening statement. You have 60 seconds to speak to your constituents to tell them why they should vote for you.
We've seen since 2018 the Ontario NDP as the official opposition stand up with healthcare, to invest in healthcare, stand for fully funded education, stand with people who are struggling to get by in this economy that's really out of control right now in affordability, and really stand up for our green space. And I'm the healthcare worker on the ballot, and the NDP is the healthcare party and the education party on the ballot. I've watched for the last 2 decades. Healthcare has gone from bad to worse. People are waiting longer than ever to get the critical services that they need. They don't have family physicians. And it's really been underfunding and underrepresentation in Kanata-Carleton from successive Conservative MPPs. And the Liberal Party, don't have party status in Ontario, so the Liberal candidate is really running kind of as an independent. And so as the official opposition and a strong voice for the community and for healthcare and for education, I want to take that to Queen's Park and be a part of the official opposition.
Well, let's stay on that topic of healthcare, because my question to you is, how would you help address concerns that the province is shifting towards what many people believe is more and more privatization? You have 2 minutes to answer that.
Yeah, I'm a healthcare worker, and I'm watching it really constructive dismantling happening within our system with underfunding in an effort to privatize. That's what it feels like. And I believe that if we were to take the chronic underfunding that we've had for the last few decades from Liberal and Conservative successive governments and have investments in healthcare that meet inflation, if we start to respect healthcare workers, graduate more healthcare workers into the system, and have the resources available so healthcare workers don't have to be forced to work double shifts. They don't have to be called in on their vacation because there's no one else to do the work, that we could have a world-class healthcare system. We're not on that trajectory right now, but the NDP has really been pushing this government to invest more. We know that there's $22.6 billion sitting there that the government's hanging on to, that we could be investing in getting more residency positions for physicians to stay in Ontario when they graduate. We could have, invest in more education and graduating double classes. We need to encourage nurses to become nurse practitioners.
I'll just stop you there because I want to get to the next question. Constituents are frustrated with public transit in your riding. What needs to be done to bring reliable transit to Kanata-Carleton?
I've been talking to constituents for the last 2 months at the door. They're very frustrated. There are so many underserviced areas in Kanata. Some people have to walk 20 minutes to get to a bus station just to then take an 1.5 hour bus ride into work. People are stopping at bus stops and calling an Uber to get there on time. So we need to ensure that we're not investing in public-private partnerships. Both the Liberal and Conservative governments are a fan of those, but let's be honest, they're contractors that want to make a quick buck and get a project done. The NDP really wants to invest in publicly funded, publicly built transit. We also want to go back to the 50% copay so that the government pays 50% of the operating costs of city transit, so that the city can then invest further into transit and make it really reliable and robust for areas, especially Kanata, who we have more of a rural area and we're at the edge of the city. And so we need to ensure that it's reliable for riders and that it's sustainable for the next 10, 15, 20 years.
You brought up education in your opening statement. Do you think that there are areas where funding for education should increase or even cut?
Yeah, I have a son in the education system, and in June, his classroom was 27 degrees. They had to take breaks and go outside to get out of the heat of the classroom. That's the reality for a lot of our kids right now. We have, with the previous governments, an over $18 billion facilities and school kind of budget for properties that is a huge backlog. And so school boards like Ottawa School Board, the Catholic School Board, have had to really make cuts to educational assistance, mental health services, special education, autism needs in classrooms, and classroom sizes have grown. The NDP really want to invest in all of those things and keep classroom sizes down because it's the future, of our kids, and they need a safe space to be educated, and our educators need the resources to educate our kids.
Melissa, really appreciate the time. Thank you so much for joining us, and I wish you the best of luck.
Thank you so much.
Just a reminder to everybody at home, again, the polls are on July 27th. There are advance polls, though, on July 19th, 20th, and 21st, and they're open from 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. Make sure that you get out and vote. Again, that date is July 27th. We'll introduce you to our next candidate in just a moment. Let's introduce you to our next candidate. He is running as an independent. I am joined by Josh Rackless. Josh, welcome. Really excited to have you here. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks. I thought I'd be standing up so they wouldn't be able to see my shoes, but I would have worn my fancy shoes.
I wouldn't worry about that
That's
at all.
all
I'll give you 60 seconds off the top to speak to your constituents in Kanata-Carleton, to tell them a little bit about yourself and to give your opening statement.
Great. Should I look at you or the camera?
Whatever you like, Josh.
Directly at the public. Hi there. I'm Josh Rackless. I'm running as an independent. Which gives me the ability to do what's best for the community. I'm not beholden to any particular agenda, any particular party. I've been interested in all the parties in the past, and I think I can see the best of all of them, and I'm just looking to do what's smart. I run a group called Ottawa Short Notice Meetups on Facebook. It's got thousands of people in it, and I'm just meeting new people every day and combing the city and traveling around on transit, and I'm just talking to people every day and hearing their thoughts, and it made me realize that, I really want to help people. I didn't realize that a lot of people were feeling kind of lost and lonely after the pandemic like I was, so it's really nice to just hear what's on their minds and be able to help, and hopefully by running, or at least even just presenting my ideas in the election, I can help people, and I encourage people to reach out to me as well. I think that's one of the things that's so great about my group, because I can just post where I am at any time, saying, hey, I'm in Byward Market, or I'm in Kanata, or whatever, who wants to meet up, and then people can immediately meet up, and I think we should be doing that in politics as well.
All right. First question based on healthcare, Josh. Yeah. How would you help address concerns that the province is shifting towards more privatization of healthcare services?
I think it's interesting. I just watched Samantha Bee get interviewed by Steve Paikin. She was in town a couple weeks ago, and people were asking her, what's the difference between Canada and the U.S.? And she said, the one thing I feel it's like there's just this energy because we have healthcare here. People are just more stressed in the U.S. They're always kind of panicking, and I think that's what makes us really different in Ontario. Like just our healthcare system. I was in Florida, I guess last year, and I started having really bad stomach pains. Turned out I had to go to the hospital, and I was terrified. Like, what? Am I going to go bankrupt just for going to the hospital? Turns out I had kidney stones. I was on the keto diet, but I wouldn't have had that fear in Ontario. So I think it's important to hold on to that thing that makes us so different. I've heard the other candidates talk about, it's important to invest in healthcare and have more doctors and all that, and I agree. But one thing I haven't heard people talk about is preventative care. Like my aunt recently, a couple years ago, passed away from pancreatic cancer, and I Googled, why is that so deadly? It's because it's caught so late. So we spend a lot of time with hospitals like treating things and cancers and everything when it's too late. Like we have a test now that we can test for like 50 kinds of cancers, and it costs like $1,000 a year. I think we should be paying for that, because if you catch a cancer early, like there's like 80% chance you'll survive. If you catch it too late, 80% chance you'll die. So, I mean, if we actually care about people, we should be testing for things. I just turned to the age where they sent me a little thing. I'm supposed to send in a sample for colon cancer, and that's it. Like, why are we not testing for other kinds of cancers?
Next question on transportation, because you did mention that you travel on public transit, and constituents in your riding are frustrated with public transit. What needs to be done to bring reliable public transit to your riding?
Yeah, I mean, I noticed when I was just trying to get the signatures to be able to run, I was like, how am I going to comb the area? Like, transit just wasn't reliable. I had to get a friend, like a guy in my Facebook group offered to drive me around, and I realized how hard it is just to take transit around there. I haven't heard anybody say this, but I think just transit should be free, first of all. Like, it's crazy that it should be $3.75 for every ride, where basically like, oh, maybe I should just take an Uber. Like, because the more people you get onto transit and off the roads, it's better for drivers, it's also better for people. So we just need to be putting more money to that. I love the trains. I was taking the LRT to Blues Fest, and it's very convenient, and I understand we're going to extend it to Kanata, and we should do that as fast as possible, and just keep pouring, and in the meantime, just put more money into buses and more routes, and get as many people onto transit as possible.
It's convincing the province to do more.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, it's basically, there's things in life and in government that you feel like it's a cost, but there's other things that are an investment. I mean, you invest in transit, it helps the economy, it's helping people get out of their house and feel less lonely, like I'm zipping around. It's helping people be more healthy because they're out getting fresh air and getting exercise. It's making Kanata more attractive to people to live there, because they go, I can easily get downtown and go to Blues Fest. Like, that's why I want to live in Kanata. So,
last question around education.
Yeah.
Do you think that there are areas where funding can be increased in education, and do you think there are areas where it could be cut?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely, that's another area where when you're putting money into it, it's an investment, obviously. I think it'd be nice to invest more in sort of specialized programs, like more special needs, or for gifted kids, or for kids who really like creative things. Like we have Canterbury High School in Ottawa, like maybe there could be an arts high school in Kanata, because people are very different, especially the more people I meet in the city, I realize, oh my God, we're all different. Why are we all lumped together into one monolithic school program, and then as grown-ups we all divide into different careers and stuff? And I think it'd be interesting to also invest in adult education. Like, things are changing so fast. Like, AI is going to be advanced by the time people are watching this on TV in an hour. There's a lot of adults. Like, even in the beginning of the pandemic, I thought, I should go back to school. Could I go to Harvard? And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is all $100,000. University education is free for retired people, but why not people who aren't retired yet? Reinvest in people so we can keep changing and adapting and become like a formidable force.
Josh, really appreciate the time today. Thanks so much for joining us, and I wish you the best of luck.
Thank you, and I love your flash socks as well.
Thank you. We'll be back to introduce you to the next candidate. Just a moment. Our next candidate represents the Green Party. His name is Stephen Warren. He joins us here in studio. Welcome, Stephen. Thanks so much for doing this. We really appreciate it. So to start things off, I've told you, how this is going to work. So I'll give you 60 seconds to start off with an opening statement where you can speak directly to the constituents of Kanata-Carleton. So go ahead, Stephen.
Well, thank you for having me, Derek. My name is Stephen Warren. I'm your Green Party candidate. I'm 19 years old, and I'm the son of two amazing working-class parents. I'm a student at the University of Ottawa, where I study political science and criminology. My father is a retired auto worker after 31 years of work. My mother is a healthcare worker at Queensway Carleton. I'm running because Kanata-Carleton residents need real change, and the old line parties are just not presenting the solutions that Kanata-Carleton residents need.
Have you had a chance to go door to door and speak to constituents so far?
I've had many lovely conversations across Kanata-Carleton, and what I'm hearing is that Kanata-Carleton residents are eager for change. Things are not doing good right now for Kanata-Carleton residents, and it's time for an MPP who isn't afraid to tackle the tough issues.
Well, let's tackle some of those tough issues. My first question revolves around healthcare. How would you help address concerns that the province is shifting towards more privatization of healthcare services? You've got 2 minutes to answer that.
Well, public health care right now is in a crisis. Everyone in our community should be able to access reliable public health care. No one should be paying for health care with their credit cards. We're in a cost of living crisis. How can we expect anyone in our community to pay hundreds of dollars for health care? It's outrageous. We absolutely need to invest in public health care. And you know, this province is sitting on $22 billion in excess funds that could easily be reinvested into public health care. However, the Doug Ford government is not acting to protect our nurses and public health care. We need to repeal Bill 124. Our nurses are taking extra shifts, they're working longer hours, and they're just not getting fair pay. If we don't take action now, our public health care system is only going to get worse, which will leave everyone in our community behind.
My next question is around transportation, and constituents in your riding, they are frustrated with transportation, they're frustrated with reliability. What needs to be done to bring more reliable public transit to Kanata-Carleton?
Well, Kanata cannot afford another LRT fiasco, and we absolutely must invest in public transit. You know, as a student, I have many peers who live in Kanata-Carleton because they just can't find housing that's affordable on campus. Many of them even live with their parents in Kanata-Carleton. And I hear stories of students who have to get up like 2 hours, 3 hours early in the morning just to hopefully catch that bus to make it to campus on time. And many students actually miss class because the buses don't run on time. It's shameful and it's unfortunate that our government isn't working to ensure that everyone in our community can get where they need to go reliably and quickly.
I mean, the responsibility is mostly on the municipality, but from a provincial level, what responsibility do you think they have in Kanata-Carleton to make sure you get that reliable transportation?
What the province needs to do is the province has to be there to ensure that public transportation remains public. The provinces are withholding funding to municipalities everywhere in Ontario. Ottawa is certainly feeling the pinch right now, and public transit is certainly not in a good state. And the province is not contributing its fair share to ensure that everyone in Kanata-Carleton can get to where they need to go on time.
You're a university student, you mentioned. My last question is on education. When it comes to education, are there areas that you think there should be increased funding, and are there areas that perhaps you think there could be some cuts in funding?
Well, Derick, this government is underfunding public education. I was in high school when Doug Ford took office and when the Doug Ford government cut education funding. And I kid you not, my high school could not afford paper for the printer in my civics class. It's embarrassing that in Ontario, in Kanata-Carleton, our public schools are in disrepair. We absolutely need to ensure that every public school has a safe learning environment for every student. There are schools that don't have AC in the middle of summer. There are schools that don't have safe ventilation. We have to take action now because this is going to leave behind the future generations. We look at the grades. Grades have been going down steadily ever since the pandemic. The shift to online learning just hasn't worked. This Ford government needs to take action to protect our children, protect our future by investing in public education.
Is funding the only issue you think is involved in education?
Well, funding is one of many issues, and also is that the Ford government isn't acting to ensure that our schools have safe learning environments. You know, as I've said, there are students learning in schools in the middle of the dead hot summer, and there isn't AC. There are schools that are in disrepair, that are not safe. Violence in classrooms has skyrocketed, and the Ford government just isn't acting to protect our children.
You mentioned violence. What can be done at a provincial level to help with violent outbursts within the school system?
The province absolutely needs to listen to teachers. It needs to work with teachers. It needs to sit down and work with them. It can't stop working against their interests. We have to make sure that everyone in our community is listened to. We have to invest in mental health. You know, I was a high school student not too long ago. I know that students right now, they're going through pretty tough times. We have to ensure that we have mental health support available in every school so that all students can succeed.
Stephen, really appreciate the time today. I wish you the best of luck. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you so much, Derick.
I want to remind everybody that by-election is July the 27th, but there are advance polls. Those advance polls are July 19th, 20th, and 21st, and they are open from 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. I will also remind you, I mentioned this off the top, that we did invite each candidate from each party. Unfortunately, the PC party candidate, Sean Webster, he declined our invitation, as did Jennifer Boudreau, who is representing New Blue. So if you're wondering why you did not see those candidates, we did send all the candidates an invitation, but they declined our invitation, unfortunately. Again, July 27th, by-election date for Kanata-Carleton. Make sure you get out there and vote. Thank you so much for watching this edition of The Local Campaign.